Have you ever sat by the window on a quiet afternoon, tea in hand, and wondered, is this it now? Not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, aching kind of way. When the house is still, the phone doesn't ring as often, and the days seem to blur together a little more than they used to. You're not unhappy, exactly, but you can't shake that feeling of something missing. That hollow spot where connection used to be. The warmth of a partner's voice, the laughter of children running through the house, the rhythm of a full life. Now, it's just you. And silence. Loneliness doesn't always come crashing in like a storm. Sometimes it drifts in gently, like fog. And emotional pain? It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers from old memories, from moments we thought we had tucked away neatly but still managed to sting. But here's something I want to share with you, and I say this from the heart: you are not alone. Not in the way you feel, not in your memories, not even in your quiet moments. There are stories out there, real, beautiful, soul-stirring stories, written by people who have felt just like you. And these stories, these books, they don't just fill time, they fill you. They offer comfort, guidance, a soft place to land when your heart feels heavy. In today's conversation, I want to sit with you, yes, just like two old friends having a heartfelt chat, and explore a few of the most powerful books I've come across that can help heal loneliness and emotional pain. These aren't just books you read. They're books that read you. That meet you where you are. And if you let them, they just might remind you that your story isn't over. That you still matter. Deeply. So, let's start with one that holds a very special place in my heart. It's a book that, quite honestly, I wish I had found sooner. It's called The Art of Happiness, by the Dalai Lama and psychiatrist Howard Cutler. Now, I know what you might be thinking, isn't that a bit too philosophical? But here's the beautiful part, it's not. This book is a conversation between wisdom and science, between spiritual truth and practical life. The Dalai Lama speaks not from a mountaintop but from the very center of human experience, where pain, joy, and compassion live. And Dr. Cutler, with all his training, asks the kind of questions we all wonder silently. Like, why do I still feel so empty, or how can I be happy when so much has been lost? What I love most about The Art of Happiness is that it doesn't pretend to offer a magic cure. Instead, it gently guides you to reframe how you see suffering, especially the emotional kind. It suggests that suffering is a part of being human, not a sign of failure. And that we can train our minds to turn pain into wisdom, and loneliness into connection, not by denying our hurt, but by moving through it with a little more compassion for ourselves. You might find yourself nodding, even tearing up, as you read. And that's okay. Let it happen. Let the words hold your hand for a while. Now, if The Art of Happiness feels like a warm embrace, then, When Things Fall Apart, by Pema Chodron is like sitting with a wise friend who tells you the truth you didn't know you needed. Pema is a Buddhist nun who writes not from a pedestal but from the middle of her own messy, beautiful, heartbreaking life. Her words are simple but powerful, and they reach places inside you that you may have forgotten even existed. What I found so moving about this book is that it doesn't shy away from the dark stuff. It doesn't tell you to cheer up or look on the bright side. Instead, it says, yes, this hurts. Sit with it. Don't run from it. It has something to teach you. And I'll admit, that's hard. Most of us have spent our whole lives trying to outrun pain, distract ourselves, or pretend we're fine. But Pema gently shows us how to face the truth of our emotions, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Loneliness, grief, regret, they're not signs that something is wrong with us. They're invitations to return to ourselves. To sit still long enough to remember that we're still here. Still breathing. Still capable of healing. One of the most comforting ideas she shares is this: only to the extent that we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible in us be found. Now, that might sound dramatic at first, but think about it. Sometimes, it's when we feel most broken that we finally find the part of us that cannot be broken. The quiet, steady core that has been with us all along. Reading this book is like a quiet meditation. You won't rush through it. And you shouldn't. Just take it a few pages at a time. Let the space between the words speak to you. Let your own heart respond. And while we're here, just the two of us, I want to say something that maybe no one said to you in a while: you are doing better than you think. Truly. Just the fact that you're here, seeking comfort, seeking connection, that says a lot about your strength. Now, let's turn to something a little different. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, by Charlie Mackesy. At first glance, it might seem like a book for children. It's filled with lovely drawings, short passages, and gentle conversations between four unlikely friends. But don't let the simplicity fool you. This book holds more wisdom in its few pages than some books do in hundreds. It's about kindness, friendship, courage, and being soft in a world that sometimes feels far too hard. I think this book is perfect for those days when everything feels heavy and you don't want to be told what to do, you just want someone to sit with you and say, "I understand." There's a moment in the book where the boy asks, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" And the horse replies, "Help." That line stopped me in my tracks. Because so often, we think asking for help is weakness. But really, it's one of the strongest, most honest things we can do. You might leave this book on your coffee table, pick it up for a few minutes in the morning, or before bed. It doesn't demand anything from you. It just offers its quiet companionship. And sometimes, that's exactly what we need. You see, books like these are more than just pages and ink. They're companions. Lifelines. They remind us that even in our most silent moments, we are part of something bigger. That others have felt what we feel. And they found a way forward, not perfectly, not all at once, but step by gentle step. So, if your heart's been aching, if your days have felt a little too quiet, if you've been wondering whether healing is still possible, I hope you'll give these stories a chance to sit with you, to speak to you, to remind you of your own story. Sometimes the smallest moments can bring us back to life. A line in a book. A character who feels like someone we used to know, or maybe someone we used to be. And that's the beauty of the next book I want to share with you. It's not a grand epic or a complicated tale. It's Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. You may have heard of it before, and if you've read it, then you'll know why it's worth mentioning here. But if you haven't, let me tell you, this is a story that will stay with you. It's the kind of book you might read in one sitting and then carry in your heart for years. At its core, Tuesdays with Morrie is about a man reconnecting with his old college professor, Morrie, who is dying of ALS. They meet every Tuesday to talk about life, love, regrets, family, aging, and yes, even death. But far from being a sad book, it's surprisingly full of life. It feels like sitting at the feet of someone who has made peace with everything, and is now sharing the secrets that matter most. What moved me most is how Morrie speaks about loneliness. He doesn't pretend it isn't real. He doesn't brush it aside. He acknowledges it, embraces it even, but he also reminds us that connection is possible at any age. That even when the body weakens, the heart doesn't have to. That it's never too late to show up with love. Morrie says, the most important thing in life is to learn how to give out love, and to let it come in. And I think that's what so many of us forget as we get older. We think maybe it's too late. That the people we used to love are gone, and we've missed our chance. But love isn't always about romance or family. Sometimes it's in the way we care for a neighbor. Or call an old friend. Or smile at a stranger. Or yes, even in the way we open ourselves to a story that makes us feel something again. And that brings me to another beautiful story. One that's deeply honest and, at times, breathtakingly raw. The Year of Magical Thinking, by Joan Didion. Now, I'll be honest with you, this isn't a light read. But sometimes, what we need most isn't comfort wrapped in a bow. Sometimes we need someone who has walked through the fire to say, "Me too. I've been there. And I'm still here." In this memoir, Joan Didion writes about the sudden death of her husband and the grief that followed. It's a deeply personal account, and she doesn't sugarcoat the pain. But that's what makes it so powerful. Because in her vulnerability, you might see your own. In her confusion and her aching, you might find your own feelings mirrored back to you. She talks about the strange logic we create when we're grieving, the magical thinking that makes us believe if we just do the right thing, they might come back. It's something few people admit out loud. But she does. And in doing so, she gives us permission to admit our own quiet, hidden thoughts. If you've lost someone, and I know many of us have, this book might feel like a lifeline. It won't fix the pain, but it might help you carry it with a little more grace. Because Joan reminds us that grief doesn't follow rules. It doesn't operate on a schedule. It simply becomes a part of who we are. And slowly, it softens. You see, these books, whether they come in the form of a spiritual guide, a gentle illustrated fable, or a raw memoir, they all do the same thing. They remind us we're not broken. We're human. And being human means feeling deeply. Sometimes more deeply than we want to. But even in that pain, there's something sacred. I think that's why stories matter so much. Especially now, at this stage in life. Because the world may not always slow down for us. Our children grow up. Friends move away. The roles we once held, mother, wife, husband, provider, change or fade. And in the quiet, it's easy to feel forgotten. But a good story reminds us that we are still here. Still learning. Still growing. Still capable of finding beauty and meaning. And one of the most beautiful reminders I've found comes from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This isn't a book about loneliness in the usual sense. It's about something even deeper, the human spirit's ability to find meaning in the most unimaginable suffering. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. And instead of turning bitter, he turned his experience into something powerful. What struck me most wasn't just what he endured, but how he processed it. He believed that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Now, I know that kind of thinking can feel tough when your heart is heavy. When you've lost people, when your body feels different, when the world moves too fast and too far. But Frankl's words are a gentle nudge. A reminder that even now, we have a choice. We can choose to find purpose, even in the pain. Even in the loneliness. And what's more meaningful than that? Not pretending everything is fine, but learning to carry the weight with dignity. To keep showing up for your own life, even when it looks different than before. You know, sometimes I think the most courageous thing we can do is simply wake up each morning and say, "Today, I'll keep trying." Even if it's just by reading a few pages of a book that helps you feel seen. Or by letting a story remind you that healing is possible. That you're never too old to grow. Never too late to feel connected again. So wherever you are right now, curled up in a favorite chair, listening while you make tea, or just quietly sitting with your thoughts, I want you to know this: you matter. Your story matters. And there are words, waiting for you in these books, that might just reach the places no one else has been able to. There's something sacred in being witnessed. In feeling seen, not just for who you once were, but for who you still are. And when life becomes quiet, when the house feels a little too still, or the phone doesn't ring like it used to, it helps to have something, someone, that says, "You are not alone in this." That's what the right book can do. It becomes a companion, a mirror, even a gentle voice in the dark. That brings me to a truly special book called The Art of Happiness, written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in conversation with psychiatrist Howard Cutler. Now, don't let the title fool you. It's not about pretending to be happy or slapping a smile over sadness. This book is about real happiness. The kind that comes from understanding your emotions, forgiving yourself, and finding a sense of peace from within, not from what the world gives or takes away. The Dalai Lama's wisdom is so simple, so humble. He doesn't tell you to stop feeling pain. He doesn't tell you to run from loneliness. He says to sit with it, to understand it, and to gently move toward compassion, first for yourself, and then for others. One of the things he says that struck me deeply is, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. And he's right. We may live in a world that praises independence and self-sufficiency, but the truth is, we were never meant to do this alone. We're wired for connection, for kindness, for empathy. What's beautiful about the art of happiness is that it teaches you how to cultivate those things even when you're by yourself. It's not about chasing a perfect life, it's about finding meaning in the one you already have. About learning to forgive the past, to breathe more deeply into the present, and to trust that joy, however small, is still possible. Sometimes, it's not about doing something big. Sometimes it's just about choosing to get out of bed. To sit by the window. To read a few pages. To light a candle. To make a cup of tea and just be. And books like this one remind us that those small things are enough. There's another book I want to mention, and this one feels like a quiet embrace. It's called The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. If you've never heard of it, that's okay, because the beauty of this book is in discovering it at the right time. And maybe, just maybe, that time is now. Mark Nepo is a poet and a cancer survivor, and what he offers in this book isn't advice, it's presence. Each page holds a short reflection, one for every day of the year. They're not long or heavy. Just little windows into truth. Sometimes they're about grief. Sometimes about resilience. Sometimes about beauty, or fear, or memory. But always, always, they're about being more awake to this life we've been given. What I love most is how gentle it is. You don't have to read it all at once. You don't have to finish it. You can open it to today's date, or any date, and let that one small entry carry you through the next moment. Sometimes that's all we can manage. And that's enough. There's one line in the book that I come back to often. Mark writes, "To listen is to lean in, softly, with a willingness to be changed by what we hear." That's what healing looks like. It's not rushing forward. It's leaning in. Listening to your own heart. Letting yourself be changed gently, not forced. And trusting that even now, you are still growing. That growth doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be seen by anyone else. It can happen quietly, in your favorite chair, as you turn the pages of a book that understands you. That's the kind of healing that lasts. You know, in many ways, healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. Before the losses. Before the noise. Before the world told you to be strong when what you really needed was someone to sit beside you and say, "It's okay to feel this way." And maybe that's what these books offer, not answers, not instructions, but presence. A soft place to land. A reminder that your emotions are valid. That your journey is worthy. That your life, in all its twists and turns, still holds beauty. So if you've been feeling the weight of loneliness, if emotional pain has been sitting in your chest like an old friend you didn't invite over, maybe it's time to pick up one of these books. Not to fix anything, not to escape, but to be with yourself in a deeper, more tender way. And let me remind you, it's okay to take your time. Healing doesn't have a clock. There's no rush, no deadline. You're not falling behind. You're simply walking a path that many others have walked before you. And just like them, you will find your footing again. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not in the way you expected. But you will. Because the truth is, your heart is still capable of connection. Still capable of joy. Still capable of wonder. And these books, they're just stepping stones. Tools to help you remember that. So take a breath with me, right now. A deep one. Let it out slowly. And know that whatever you're feeling, you're not alone. Somewhere, someone else is holding the same book. Sitting with the same thoughts. Hoping for the same sense of peace. You are seen. You are loved. And your story isn't over yet. If this conversation touched something in you, if it helped, even just a little, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Let's make this a space where people feel safe. Where we remind each other that even though life brings seasons of sorrow, it also brings seasons of healing. And if you haven't already, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Not because it's expected, but because we all need more places that feel like home. More voices that remind us to keep going. More moments like this one, where we pause, and breathe, and remember that we're still here. Here's to living with tenderness, with courage, and with a heart open enough to keep turning the page.